Ladies and gentlemen, a very warm welcome to today's webinar. We have a fantastic case study from Cameron revealing how to drive continuous improvement while implementing SAP. I'm Matt Garrett-Fisher, Head of Research at sharedserviceslink.com. Now, just to give you some background about sharedserviceslink.com, the company was set up in 2007 with one objective, and that's to provide best practice information for the finance and accounting shared services market through our conferences, our webinars, reports, news, and our fantastic website. So do become a member. It's free, and as a member you have an access to a huge amount of information. So today, as I said, we're focusing on how to drive continuous improvement and implement SAP simultaneously. So let's have a look at the agenda over the next hour. Now, I'll touch on briefly on how this session works. Then I'll talk about the intention of this session, hand over to our experts, and I'll finish with questions from you, the audience. So how does this session work? Well, it's very straightforward. Many of you have used this platform before, the GoToWebinar platform. So should you have any technical questions, we do have a technical support on the line ready to assist you. So please use your free text box in your GoToWebinar panel for any help on this. We're all on this webinar for obviously a very important reason, and that's to gain relevant practical tips on how to drive continuous improvement while implementing SAP, and really gaining clarity from some of the industry's top experts. So I would really urge you to please use this opportunity to put forward questions to me and the experts on the line. Now, how that works is very, very simple. You have a free text box. Please submit your questions via this. They will then come to me, and I will distribute them to one of our experts in the last few minutes of the call. So as I said, I urge you to use this opportunity to get answers to those burning questions that you have, the reason why you came on this webinar in the first place. This is very much a two-way dialogue, so please take advantage of that. And the sooner you send your question to me, the more likely it will be asked. So what's the intention of this session then? Well, we carried out some benchmarking at our Dallas Shared Services Summit last week around continuous improvement, and surprisingly we found that continuous improvement actually contributes 10% to cost savings. Now, this is in addition to the 20% of savings already delivered through finance transformation. So can transformations such as SAP implementations be carried out simultaneously while driving continuous improvement? Well, is there an answer or a solution to this? Well, over the next hour, Emitra Nelson from Cameron is here with Nimbus to reveal more and tell you if there is an answer. So before I hand over to our first speaker, I just wanted to do a quick poll with our audience. Now, we're looking for 100% response rate. So the first question is this: which finance systems does your organization use? Is it SAP, Oracle, SAP and Oracle, or other? Okay, we've had 63% of people responding. If you haven't responded now, please vote in 3, 2, 1. Okay, that's a pretty good response rate. We've had 80% of people respond to that question. From the results, we can see that the vast majority, over 54% of our audience are on SAP, and 8% are on SAP and Oracle, with just less than a third using other platforms. Okay, so as I said, do follow up with each of our experts, and also there's a lot of information on the slides. So make sure you listen carefully to our speakers and use the slides as notes to refer to after it's ended. So without further ado, over to our first speaker, Alicia Yakmich from Nimbus Partners, a company which has recently been acquired by the TIBCO company. Over to you, Alicia.
Thanks, Matt. Hello, I'm Alicia Yakmich, as he said. I'm a senior consultant with Nimbus. So I've worked with a number of different clients. One of those is Emitra Nelson, who you'll hear from shortly. And I'd like to start by just giving you some context really into what Nimbus Control is and our philosophy behind process. So this slide really sums up what we do if we had to consolidate it into a single slide. Statistics show that any given organization has about 80% processes, 80% of their activities which are manual and about 20% which are automated. A lot of energy typically goes into defining and streamlining the automated processes. A lot of money and a lot of effort really goes into that. But the end-to-end process goes through both manual and automated processes. So you can have the best automated process in the world, but if people don't understand what, the manual steps in between, you can have real challenges. So we emphasize showing the complete picture. So not only do we show the whole process flow, but we show it in a very simple, standard format. So processes can be very complex, but the way they're communicated doesn't have to be. So we use the standard format where every box answers all of these questions. First of all, what's being done, who's doing it, when is it being done, how is it being done, and ultimately, why are you doing it, which certainly answers a lot of questions for users who are trying to understand what they're doing. You can also attach almost anything electronic to processes, so it once again provides more context into what they're doing and how to do it. So you can add links to transactions, links to work instructions, training material, forms, templates, really anything that will help users do their job. So it should be a one-stop shop where they can go to find what they need. Additionally, you can link to metrics. So metrics allow you to pull from live data, showing you how you're performing in the context of the process. Now, all of these steps, all of these activities fit together into an overall framework that can scale from a very high-level strategic level to a detailed operational level and even a transactional level, which allows you, even at the lowest level, to launch into transactions or different workflows at a very granular level. This also allows you to have a common language between business and IT. And finally, it provides a framework for managing your risks and compliance. So you can take what you've already created and overlay that framework with control points into your process for users and auditors to see. I'm sure you've experienced where a number of initiatives in any given organization, a lot of initiatives are going on at one time, and they all touch business process in one way or another. And oftentimes, people define them different ways. They put them in PowerPoint, they put them in Visio, they put them in Excel or other products, and they store them in separate locations. And fundamentally, you deal with overlap or gaps, or people just aren't speaking the same language. So this is madness. You don't have to reinvent the wheel every time you do business processes. You can bring all of it together into a single integrated platform, which is what Nimbus provides. This platform also provides a collaborative layer, allowing process owners, risk officers, subject matter experts, and other people involved in the change of a process to review and govern those changes. And then finally, it provides a presentation layer, which is where a lot of the where really most of the value is, allowing end users to see their processes, and they can quickly find what they need in an online portal. So it gives users a single source of truth for processes, and they don't have to wonder where the most current process is. So having this framework where you've got, all of your processes captured in a single place, and a presentation or a collaborative layer, and then finally the presentation layer, which allows everyone in your organization to see processes, enables continuous improvement and the opportunity to build on the work that's been done. So that allows you to move up the process maturity curve, which you see here. So if you aren't familiar with this, the CMMI process maturity curve is a benchmark allowing you to assess the maturity of the processes in your organization. So at the lowest level, level 1, you've got a culture of heroes where basically everyone is just reacting and there aren't necessarily defined processes. Moving up, you've got processes which are maybe defined at a department level or a functional level. Moving up a little bit more, processes are defined at an enterprise level and are really starting to be managed that way. At level 4, you've got where they're really being measured and there's a true management of those processes. And then finally, the highest level is where processes are continuously being improved and you're building on the work that's been done. So I'd like to pass it off to Matt for a poll question.
Thanks, Alicia. Okay, we're going to do a quick poll just on what Alicia's been talking about. And the question is, where is your organization on the process maturity curve? So where is your organization on the process maturity curve? So if you look at that last slide, is it on level 1, no organized processes, level 2, some organized processes, level 3, most processes organized, level 4, processes are managed, or level 5, processes are continuously improved? So where is your organization on the process maturity curve? Please vote level 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. 60% of you have voted. So if you've not responded yet, please vote in 3, 2, 1. Okay. Okay, we had about 3/4 of the audience voting there, and you can see the results just about to pop up onto your screen. So almost 60% of you are at level 3, so most of your processes are organized. We have about 19% at level 1 and 2. Around 1/5 of the audience is managing their processes at level 4, and very small percentage, only 5%, are at level 5 where their processes are continuously improved. So with that insight, it's back to you for a summary, Alicia.
Thanks. So just to summarize, Nimbus provides a collaborative environment allowing multiple initiatives to work from the same platform. It uses a standard language, encouraging communication between different types of users. And finally, it's scalable across an entire organization, so all users can see their processes and really understand their processes and what they're supposed to do, both manual and automated processes. So now I'd like to introduce Emitra Nelson, who can give you, a more detailed and specific look at some of the work that's been done. She's got a great story, and I had the pleasure of working with Emitra for the last 1.5 years off and on. So I'll pass it off to Emitra to tell her story.
Thanks, Alicia. Hi, this is Emitra Nelson, and I'm currently the Global Close Coordinator at Cameron International. I've been in the oil and gas industry for the past 30 years, both working at Shell and Enron before coming into Cameron. So let's discuss what we're going to do for the agenda today. We're going to walk through how our shared services evolution came through. Then we'll talk about how we utilize the Nimbus process to improve our month-end close. And then we'll discuss how utilizing that process helped us in our new implementation of the ERP system. And then we'll go on to cut some of the lessons learned so that we can share what we've learned. And then we'll pass it back off for questions to Matt. So let's get started. First of all, let me introduce Cameron. I joined Cameron about 5 years ago, and we watched it have continuous growth in our international footprint, as well as overall annualized orders. Cameron has the ability to provide instruments above ground, below ground, and underwater. We provide instruments that measure. We have flow control tools, valves that assist in the oil and gas industry, And we'd like to emphasize the fact that we have an international impact, so that is one of the reasons that we needed to find a tool set that could be used internationally. So as we step through our shared services evolution, this timeline is based on our financial shared services process, and it's based on basically about the last 4 or 5 years. So when I came, there was a significant number of decentralized processes, and the global close process was one of the first large initiatives to be in the shared services group. When I took over the role, there was some interesting opportunities that we thought needed to be addressed. In 2009, we found the NIBUS group to assist us in that process, and they were able to help us go in and improve our processes within the global close. When we initially started, we had several problems, and those problems were based on the fact that we had a humongous Excel spreadsheet. It had 12 pages, 247 steps. If you can imagine, that was probably an interesting thing when we very first walked in. In addition, we had 210 controllers. They were domestic as well as international. So we had 247 steps, and the languages were multiple based on depending on what nation we're in. There was no way to ensure that we had consistency in the process because everybody was kind of looking at the same steps but kind of doing their own thing. If we made a change in the process, it meant changing the colors. It meant renumbering that process. We had to go in and add additional tasks. It took me a man week every time we made a change in the process. It took me a man week just to update the spreadsheet. And as you can see by this spreadsheet, I know it's hard to read, but that's the whole intention. Can you imagine having to look at this spreadsheet every month and try to figure out what the changes were? So what we wanted to do was go in and make sure that so we decided we needed to change our process. So the objectives that we did were we wanted to, one, minimize the manual efforts needed to maintain that spreadsheet. We wanted to increase the percent of the batch jobs because if we automated it, we knew that we could regulate the system better. Also, we wanted to decrease the number of steps in the close process, which would make it a better process. While doing that, we wanted to make sure that we could improve the training of that process, and in that way, we would make sure we had a more consistent process. So we decided we'd use a two-pronged approach. So the initial solution for the technical side was that we would go in and we analyzed the batch jobs for efficiency to make sure that we had as many things as we could automated. We tripled the batch jobs from 1,200 to 6,000, or almost tripled the batch jobs from 1,200 to 6,000. Well, in addition to that, we decided we need to limit the access to the people that were in SAP. For those of you who use SAP, you'll know there's several main points that we could, touch points that we could minimize. One of the things that we did was the exchange rate tables. There were 1,000 people that could go in and change exchange rates. So every time we ran remeasurement or translation, if someone had reopened the system after we had run those processes, we had to run them again. Also, the opening and closing of the books, which is critical for making sure that the close process is consistent. There were 392 people who had access to open and close the books. In addition to that, there was 314 people who could reopen the CO side of the book, so they could do the management side of the book as well as the financial side of the books. And there was 314 people that could do that. Well, we zapped everybody, and now there's only 4 people that can touch the rate table. There's only 8 people that can open and close the book, and those same 8 can do the control side. So that was our technical solution. So for our process solution, we did a little bit different. What we did was we analyzed several organizations, and we decided on NIBUS for a multitude of reasons, but primarily because they were very practical. It was easy to read. It was easy to make changes. It was also had a very user-friendly face on it. So making the end users happy about it was critical in what we were deciding as a process. In addition, we wanted to make sure it was sustainable. I didn't want to have to do something that we did today and recreate it tomorrow. So we wanted to make sure that it was sustainable, and as Alicia said earlier, it could be used across multiple organizations within Cameron. Also, of course, we had to make sure there was a cost-benefit analysis. So using those 4 selection criteria is we chose the Nimbus process, and then we used it to deploy the month-in post process. So we turned our really ugly spreadsheet into a really cute and adorable Nimbus control map. One of the things that we enjoyed is that utilizing the control map, we were able to build what we call the Diagram Explorer, and it allowed us to show on the left-hand side, they could choose directly what they wanted to see. So while I had all the maps input, this gave them kind of it's kind of like using Google. It goes directly to where you needed to get to that spot. So we were able to go in and set up all of our processes and maintain them all in the Nimbus control map so that any changes that we did could instantly be included in here, and we had a process that everybody could see. In addition to that, we were able to go in and by using the Nimbus control maps, we were able to include our training materials. We were able to make sure that our work instructions were included as well. So in this snippet of the Nimbus control map that you see online, if you'll notice, I've got the transaction, the SAP transaction is included. I've attached documentation on not only the step-by-step how-to, but also work instructions as to why you do it. In addition, we have a little helpful hints, which is a little bubble that you see on the right-hand side, because maybe sometimes you want to say, oh, you know, you only use this when, and it really helps the end user be able to notice how everything is basically in one shop. So I have one-stop shopping for all of my users to be able to know how to use that process. So for us, that was critical to ensure that we had improving the process. In addition, what we did was we used what they call the storyboards, which is something that is within the Nimbus process. And what that allowed us to do was it let us take specific points that we knew were going to be critical pain points. So it says, I need to be able to step through an entire process, no matter where it is in the Nimbus maps. And by doing that, we're able to give them the steps in that process. So we go through and we say, okay, it's easily understandable by the end user. It also helped me provide some consistency in how we were doing the training. So we'd ask the people to step through the steps. One of the best parts by going through the storyboards was that I was able to include acknowledgments on the storyboard. And in doing that, it allowed me to not only know that they had stepped through the process, but it gave me a little spot where I could actually say, by using the acknowledgement page, I'm going through and saying, okay, give me your password. And that allows me to know, one, I can track easily that they've actually read the process, that they understood the process, and mostly that they've actually looked at the process. So the acknowledgement phase gave me the ability to know that it was done consistently and that I knew they had touched anything. So we utilized that process when we were doing every time I did an update to the process, I would have to go back and acknowledge that they'd done it. So it gave me the confidence to know that they were keeping up with the changes in the process as well as how to do the process. So what are some of the keys to success that we saw as we were doing the month-end close process? One, it was absolutely awesome that we had the management support to back us up in order to get this done. We actually had, we went in and asked management if we could do it. We got management support right away, so we were able to start practically as soon as we decided to do it. In addition to that, we chose the software that met the business requirement. Not what the consultants wanted me to do, not what IT wanted me to do, but what did the business need to meet? What did the business require to meet their needs? In addition to that, we created a team that had business expertise and technical expertise, both from the SAP side as well as from the Nimbus side. So those were the things that I think were a success. So what were some of the statistics of what we achieved in our process? We were able to go through and we reduced our billing documents by like 85%. In addition to that, we were able to reduce our block billing documents by 91%. So what that meant was I got bigger, faster money coming in, which is really critical for us. We're very cash friendly. In addition to that, the biggest thing was I was able to eliminate a man week out of my time just getting in preparation for flows. I was able to make my controllers more self-sufficient because they could step through the process without me being right by their side. We cut off the time it took for the poor controllers to send their information, to get the information back to us. So the whole close process, I was able to eliminate the 80% of the time it took just making copies and sending it in and getting it to ensure that everybody had done the process. Also, by the batch jobs, so for those of you who are using SAP, the batch jobs are where I get all the error messages come in. If we didn't correct those error messages, then somebody had to go with a journal entry and put in a journal entry, and then they go, oh, there's a batch error, reverse the journal entry, put it in. So we were able to reduce 91% of those, which made our information not only more accurate, but it was more consistently done. The biggest thing is by utilizing our process, we were able to actually complete this process ahead of schedule. It took us 8 weeks from pillar to post, so that was pretty good for what we had done with that. One of the things that by making that a successful product, it kind of had a domino effect for what we ended up having to do in our process. So what we did was we also started using the Nimbus control process for the cost roll. We used it for credit management. And then ultimately it led to us using it as part of the implementation for our new ERP process. So halfway through 2010, our new SAP implementation was picking up speed. And due to a series of mergers, acquisitions, processes, data, fragmentation, whatever, we really needed to do something that was going to make us a better process. So as you can see by the numbers on the screen, we had some significant issues. I mean, we had 11,000 cost centers, and we only have 22,000 employees. So basically, it was 2 employees per cost center. And for those of you who utilize, those numbers are way out of control. So what we wanted to do was go in and make sure that we, when they decided to do the implementation, they joined with SAP and said, okay, here's what we did. So our objectives of the new ERP implementation were, we wanted to make sure that we were following leading practices. We wanted organizational beliefs, values, and norms so that we'd actually be able to go through there. We wanted our processes to be consistent with what leading practices were. We wanted to implement some management controls and ensure that our technology had that. Also, we wanted a way so that we would have a standardized how we did the work globally. So as much as possible, each step should be the same no matter where you went within our organization. We wanted to make sure that we could consolidate all of the systems into one system of record, and also we wanted to make sure we had sustainable results. So as you can see by the 3 highlighted ones there, that led us to utilizing the same processes that we had used to do the month-end flows, assisted us in being able to get ready for this new ERP implementation. So right now I'm going to send it back to Matt for another quick poll.
Thank you, Emitra, for that. We're just going to do one more quick poll now. And the question is, does your organization take a holistic end-to-end approach to systems implementation, ensuring IT is aligned with the business? So the selections are yes, no, or sometimes. So once again, does your organization take a holistic end-to-end approach to systems implementation, ensuring IT is aligned with the business? So we've had 60% of you voted. If you haven't responded, please vote in 3, 2, 1. Okay. And we've had around 2/3 of you vote. Interesting results. No one has voted for no, so not having any holistic end-to-end approach to systems implementation. 45% of you have taken an end-to-end approach, and the majority of you do it sometimes, but not consistently. So interesting results there. So without further ado, back to you, Emitra.
Excellent. Okay, so because of its ease of use, the business users, not the IT consultants, control the workshops and own the process. They map the processes live in a workshop while the consultants and IT captured requirements, which led to the configuration of the system. All the processes were immediately available for users to view on the web, and users from the home organizations were able to review and provide input as soon as the processes were available. As an added bonus, because of the month-end process, it was already defined. It was a simple copy and paste, so we were able to copy and paste that in. The business processes drove the configuration of SAP, and we utilized the synchronization to help keep these two in sync. The processes also helped define the training of the users, the testing of the system, and it gave us a way to put our security into the same place. As you can see from the picture that is on here, we were able to maintain just one single source of the truth, which made it easy to go in and we had to make one update, and it helps us update the rest of the processes. So as we set through the benefits of all of that, of making that approach, were that we had the single source of the truth. All of our month-end processes could be copied, not necessarily redesigned, which was awesome. And the project was able to communicate any and all updates to the offices really, really fast. We were able to maintain draft and master versions allowed during this process, which helps us in the governing process. So as you can see on the bottom of the page, it told not only who the owner was, told them who the author was, and it also told us what version we were on. So that if somebody was looking at something and they thought, oh, you know what, I'm not on the final one, by looking at the bottom of the page, it told them that it was authorized, it's the master, it's the draft, and it gave us the ability to do updates and maintain all of the updates in one spot, but also let our end users know exactly what phase we were in. So let's discuss some of the lessons learned that we've done. What we did was we wanted to make sure that we chose a tool that was user-friendly and flexible. It reduced the learning curve. It required less technical staff, and it was a common language between both the business unit and the IT people, so it made the communication much easier. The businesses drove the actual process, not the consultants or IT. That allowed us to make sure that it promoted ownership, it empowered the businesses to manage the process much quicker, and it absolutely increased our user adoption. By them participating in the process, it made it easy enough to say, oh, I said that, so that's got to be right, and it made that much easier. Governance was critical. We had, it's necessary in order to make sure you have just a single source of the truth. The processes need to be maintained across the systems, and they need to make sure they're kept in sync. One of the mistakes we made was we made governance an afterthought. If we had it to do over again, governance should have been at the beginning of the process. We kind of brought it up in the middle, which made us have to go back and maybe redo some of our processes to ensure that they were properly governed. So those are the three things that I think made the biggest difference in our lessons learned. So back to you, Matt.
Thank you, Emitra. And thank you for that fascinating insight, Emitra, and also thank you to Alicia for both sharing some real practical tips on how to drive continuous improvement while implementing SAP. Now, before I go to questions, I just wanted to do one final poll, and the final poll question is, does your organization see a process management platform like Nimbus Control as one of the foundations for sustainable continuous improvement? So please select an answer, yes, no, or perhaps. So once again, does your organization see a process management platform like Nimbus Control as one of the foundations for sustainable continuous improvement? So we've had around 2/3 of you vote. If you haven't responded, please vote now in 3, 2, 1. Okay. So 52% of you say yes, that you see this as essential for having a sustainable continuous improvement. About 1/3 of you say perhaps, and very few of you, only 16%, say no. So thank you for that. Now I thought I'd share with you what's coming up next for you, the audience, at sharedserviceslink.com. So we've got a fantastic webinar lineup over the next few months. A webinar next month on optimizing reconciliation and cash applications in complex shared services environments. And we've also got three great webinars for you in November as well. On top of that, we have our conference series. We have our Accounts Payable Technology Summit, which takes place in London on the 6th to the 8th of December, and also our flagship shared services event, the European Summit for Leaders in Finance, Shared Services and Outsourcing. You can visit our website for more information on that, or contact us using the details on the last slide. So it's question time now, and we have lots of questions for the panelists. You'll be excited to know. The first question to Alicia is, how do you deal with Oracle? We've talked about SAP. How do you deal with Oracle?
Well, it's really in the same way. We do have a specific integration built with SAP because SAP is a little bit different in terms of the way the integration works. But just like you could launch into SAP transactions, you can also launch into Oracle transactions, and it's very simple to link to that as well. So it's very much the same way.
Okay, and I mean, is it applicable, I guess, to other ERPs as well?
Yeah, certainly. We've done integration with JD Edwards and some others as well. Typically, we work with SAP and Oracle because those tend to be the main two, but we've definitely done it with other systems. We've got integration with Salesforce.com and other CRM systems as well.
Okay. It's another question about the operating model you use. How centralized do your transactions need to be in order to optimize control and really get the most out of Nimbus control? Alicia?
Yeah, sorry. Can you repeat the question, please?
So Alicia, how centralized do your transactions need to be to really get the most out of Nimbus control?
I don't know that they need to be centralized. I mean, I don't know if you mean organizationally or the way they're managed within IT, but when we started doing this with Emitra, for instance, it was, it was just a subset of her organization doing a process on a system that was not entirely used centrally. So her processes and the transactions that she had were being used. In the meantime, there was a whole other project going on. She talked about the SAP project going on. So it always works better if it's central because generally, organizations just run a little more smoothly if it's managed centrally, but it doesn't have to be done that way.
Okay. We've got a question actually from someone who works in HR. Can you use control for HR, Alicia?
Yeah, absolutely. You can use it for any process, and we actually have a number of accelerators, which we didn't talk about, but our accelerators are basically, these are best practice processes, and it's sort of a quick start to get you going on some of the processes, and we've built out storyboards and a graphical user interface that looks nice, and it's just kind of something to get you going. So we use this extensively for HR with a number of different clients.
Okay. This is one for Emitra. Emitra, can you elaborate more on the changes that occurred to enhance the governance process, as you said, after it was identified as a weak point? Could you elaborate more on that?
Yeah, one of the things that we did was we didn't have what we considered to be master data governance groups. And so one of the things that we ended up with was by not monitoring or governing the master data, we ended up with a really bad and ugly transformation for the master data. So we have actually created master data governance groups, and we've also created what we call our business process committees. And so any change that is required to a process has to go through and be approved by these business process committees before any change can be made to the process. So what that eliminated was people going out and saying, oh, you know what, I think we need to change this, and then we made the change and then found out it wasn't globally accepted by everybody. So as opposed to us going to each of the individual countries, groups, controllers, now we just go to the BPC and say, here's the request that we're making, do you approve it? So these BPCs are made up of very high-level people within the organization. So what that eliminated was everybody making a decision. We made 3 changes, realized that wasn't working, go back, make 3 changes. So by utilizing these BPCs and the master data governance groups, we have a much tighter control over any change that's made to the process. Does that answer your question?
Okay. Yeah, thank you very much, Emitra. We've actually got another question for you. Emitra, what resistance did you meet from your employees? Because, you know, did it mean headcount reduction?
Actually, I would say it was headcount reorganization. I don't think that none of it was built on I need to eliminate people. It was I'm utilizing my people in the wrong way. So what I did was by changing it, like for the month-end close process, I gave the controllers the ability to go back and do analysis of accounting as opposed to paper shuffling. So I utilized my employees better. So what it probably meant was I didn't have to hire a consultant or a part-timer or something to come in and just do paperwork shuffling, and it gave the controller the ability to go back and do real accounting work. So not necessarily that we were trying to cut so many heads, it was just that we were not utilizing our time very well at all.
Okay, thanks, Emitra. A question for you, Alicia. How do you assess process maturity and change? How do you measure it? How do you know exactly where you are?
Well, there's a few ways. The CMMI, which I showed earlier, has some benchmarking where you can sort of analyze your processes. We have something that we use as a tool to assess organizations, and we just have a whole list of questions. You know, who owns your processes? How are they managed? How often are they up to date? Where are they kept? And there are a number of different ways where you can assess maturity of those processes. But we have some tools that we can use, or you can find information about CMMI online, which can give you some more details about that.
Excellent. Okay. Another one for you, Alicia. This is an interesting one. How does Nimbus distinguish between innovation and continuous improvement?
Well, I think from a process perspective, Mike, do you have anything you'd like to add on this? You know, I think from a process perspective, continuous improvement, oftentimes when you're talking about processes, it's oriented around Six Sigma and really analyzing, okay, what are our current processes and how can we make these processes better? Innovation, the way that I think about it, is a little more thinking outside the box. It's beyond just streamlining. It's, you know, how can we reinvent this to make it, to do a complete step change in how our processes work.
Okay. Kind of follow-on question from that for Emitra. Emitra, how is this Nimbus platform being tied into Cameron's Lean and Six Sigma projects? You know, how kind of closely related is it, and how does it fit in?
And I will answer everything at Cameron. We start with that Lean Six Sigma black belt impression. So one of the things that we did, even when we did the monthly close process, was we brought a group into the room, did a little mini Kaizen, and said, okay, step through the processes and tell me every process you do. Now, how could we go in and analyze that? So we went very much into the design, analyze, make sure it's measured correctly, and then we made the decision of where the improvements needed to be made. So every process that we do within Cameron uses that process. What the Nimbus gave us the ability to do was, by the time we put it into the control map, it was very easy for anyone in the room to see what it was. So it was a lot easier to determine where the improvements needed to be made once it was in picture format as opposed to being in spreadsheet format. And for the SAP implementation, we literally set everybody in a room and step through every picture in the process to say, these are the steps that are in there and where can we make improvements. So we utilize it very heavily.
Okay. Emitra, another question for you. How long did this whole development take from end to end? How long did it take to implement?
The month-end close process we actually did in 8 weeks. The ERP implementation is ongoing. We have done the first go-live. We actually went live with the first piece in July, and we are coming up in a phased implementation.
Okay. A question for you, Alicia. How do you cope with multiple landscapes? Sorry, multiple languages.
There's a capability within the product that allows you to show different languages. So you can capture the process. You can have it on one framework, but you can show it using multiple languages. So and the people access it through the web. So Internet Explorer or whatever browser they're using will pick up the language that they want. Now it has to be translated, so the system doesn't automatically translate that, but there's a capability to manage it all within the same framework, so you don't have to recreate it for every single language.
Okay. I think I'm going to ask this question to both of you. Emitra first. Emitra, can risks and controls be embedded within the end-to-end processes that you have?
Yes, and one of the things that we do inside the month-end process is I use the acknowledgement phase to, if I know there's a specific area that could cause me a risk or a problem, that's where we stick in our storyboards and our acknowledgement phase so that we can track it a little better. And then also we have a link, and one of the links inside of our process is it links over to what we call our internal controls account book. So I've got my policies, procedures, and my internal accounting controls all linked to that Nimbus process.
Okay, and the same question to Alicia. So can risks and controls be embedded in the end-to-end processes that you run?
Definitely. We do this actually a lot. We work with a lot of financial services companies and pharmaceutical clients as well who do this. So, as I mentioned, you can define your framework and then identify where are your control points in that particular process. And those control points can be linked to risks, they can be linked to audits, and they can be linked to a lot of other data, or really any data. You can configure it how you want to capture it. So that you can quickly run reports and figure out where your control points are, what those controls are in relation to your risks, and when have those been audited, and information like that.
Okay. Another one for you, Alicia. How is one line in Excel connected to a process in Nimbus?
Well, in the instance of Emitra's scenario, each line that she had was a specific activity. So she had, at the time, it was something like 400 lines. So we converted that into a process map where there were then 400 activities. So each activity builds up to create a diagram and then ultimately a big process map. I think it would depend on who the customer is and how they're using Excel, but typically it's, one line becomes one activity.
Okay. This is a question about the technology for Emitra. Emitra, is this technology a software, or is this a software as a service? Is it on the cloud?
I think I'm gonna answer it, and then I'm gonna let Alicia answer it. We have our own, but I know that you can use their servers as well. But we host our own.
Yep,
okay.
That's right.
And Alicia?
Yeah, you can have it in-house, which some people choose to do, and some people would rather not deal with it, and they would just want to outsource it to us. And in that case, you can certainly have it on the cloud as well.
Okay. This is another interesting one for you, Emitra. Do employees work with SAP via Nimbus? Is Nimbus the interface that they use?
At
Is it a main interface?
The answer to that is yes and no. One of the things that we teach them is that as they're going through the process, they're able to link directly into SAP. So if they were stepping through a process such as revaluing and they didn't know what steps to use, they could go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, do all of their steps in that process. They can link directly into SAP. They don't have to go through Nimbus, though, in order to get into SAP. I use a portal system as well so that they can go straight into the SAP GUI. So they can go in both ways.
Okay. This is one for you, Alicia. Now, referring back to your opening slide, you talked about the 80-20 in your big picture, the 80-20 rule. How do you measure this? Can you talk can you talk us through that a bit more?
Well, that just comes from research. Primarily, actually, SAP came up with that, and they've done some research to identify that some organizations, it's more like 70-30, but generally speaking, most of the organization has a lot of manual processes or a lot of manual activities within a process. So certainly, if you think about a lot of, in any given process, if it's just getting a badge, there's a lot that you can do with systems that gets automated, but there's a lot that you manually have to do. So when you start adding it up and really thinking through any given process, you do realize there is actually a lot in between the automated bits. There are other studies that have come up with similar results as well. I think Accenture did one and Deloitte as well.
Okay, this is one for both of you. Emitra, what was a typical ROI period for you for this project?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand the question.
What was the ROI period? How long did it take for you to get a return on your investment in this solution?
We actually, on the monthly close process, we did the ROI on that, and we estimated it to be a year and a half. It ended up being about 7 months. Again, we finished like in a we finished it like in 8 weeks. So we cut off some severe time, but also by chopping off so much of the it's a man week of my time, a man week of controller's time, and we increased our cash flow. So it was a quick ROI on that one. The implementation of the SAP process, they're still doing that part of it, so I can't give that information out. I don't know that yet, but definitely it was pretty fast on our monthly close process.
Okay, and Alicia, what's the kind of typical ROI period that you see from your other clients?
I think a lot of it depends on how much people take, how much they're taking on. If you're talking about typically, lots of times this is done in conjunction with an ERP implementation or something like that. So the way that it gets measured gets a little bit convoluted with the other initiative that's going on. I don't know that I could give a perfect answer to that. It really does vary depending on what people are trying to do and the objectives they're trying to achieve.
One of the things I will say that is to improve the ROI, which is one of the reasons ours worked, was we did, when we put our team together, we utilized good Nimbus consultants and good SAP consultants, so I had less sit and wait time, and I think that was a big chunk of it. So I wasn't paying for wasted time trying to get something to work or trying to make, how does this work, how does this fit together. I didn't have that wasted time in there, so by having everybody together and getting it done with good consultants, it really made a difference in my timeline.
Okay, and a final question for you, Emitra. What were the audit implications of this new approach? Are your auditors on board?
Actually, we had the auditors on the team, so just to make sure that we were covering all of our bases, our internal audit director was part of the actual team going through the implementation of the Nimbus, so she was right there with us the entire time. making sure that we had made all the connections we needed to make, and if we were changing a piece of the process that was in the audit track, that it was edited, documented, and re-put into the ICAD process. So we made sure to include our audit team up front so that we didn't have to worry about going back and making sure that it was met.
Okay, and just a follow-on question from that. So you mentioned that the audit team are involved. Who else needs to be in your project team? Who are the kind of essential people that you would advise to be on that team?
We made sure that we had at least one accounting director so that we were meeting the accounting objectives. We made sure that we had a, let's say, a rather high-level sponsor so that we didn't have to worry about too short on the response time. And then we used a experts, if you will. We had what we call the dotted lines to the SAP experts by area, so that I had an STS expert and I had an FI expert and a purchasing expert that were on call to come to us immediately if we needed help. Mostly we just wanted to make sure we had our immediate team was about 6 people, and then we had dotted lines to about 6 others, and that was including a vice president of finance, we had a director of finance, and I had 2 SAP people. I had almost my own on-call Nimbus person, and that was Alicia. And then I had 2 authors that literally sat down and did nothing except maintain the spreadsheet as I went through it. So that was kind of the team that we utilized.
Okay.
And they were 100% for the record. That's 100% dedication to that. Nobody was piecemealing. So that was probably the other thing I would say is they were dedicated 100% to the team.
Okay. I've got time for one more question for you, Emitra.
Okay.
What is being done to standardize the training and supplemental information attached at the key steps in the process? And is it important to have standardization in the attached documents?
It is very important. As a matter of fact, I even made sure that the names that they attached were standardized so that everybody, no matter when they came in, they could look and they'd know where to go into that standardized training material. Also, they did come up with a training team now that will be making sure that the training is consistent across the Cameron organization. So what we did for our training departments was say that you needed to make sure you attached a how-to document as well as a why document for every one of those documentations. So every critical step has a how-to doc as well as a why doc. And so the training team that they've now implemented as part of the governance process, they actually will be going in and making sure that every one of those is standardized across the board. So with the new implementation of the ERP system, everybody's going to have the exact same training material. It'll look the same. It's going to have a standardized heading, and it'll all be attached in the same spot within Nimbus.
Okay, I'm going to squeeze in one more question for you, Emitra.
Okay.
So when changes were made to processes that had already been rolled out to end users, how did you draw user attention to the specific changes for them to acknowledge?
We use the magic email process by going in and giving them an assignment. So it basically comes up on the Nimbus homepage. It'll actually say you have a task to perform. And so it flicks an email out to them that says you have an update to a process. Please go in and acknowledge that you've seen it. And then I track the acknowledgments to see that they've actually gone in and done it. Just maybe another way, but that way worked for us.
Sure. Okay, well, we have really run out of time for more questions. So I'd really like to thank our incredible speakers today, Alicia and Emitra. Please do follow up with them, and I hope you've taken some gems of wisdom and some real advice to carry on your own continuous improvement initiatives. So I also hope to see you again soon for our other webinars and conferences, if you're available. Thank you for everything. That's all from me. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.